Thank you for the readings and welcome everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Nayaswami Anandi. I'm visiting here today from our community up at Ananda Village. And it's always special to come down here. I love to share in your congregation. I want to especially welcome any of you who are here for the first time and also offer congratulations to those of you who took Kriya initiation last night for the first time. Welcome, and I hope your life of Kriya is deeply, deeply fulfilling for you. Well, this morning we have a wonderful topic, reincarnation, and one of the things that makes it so wonderful is that it doesn't matter if you believe in reincarnation or not. You can believe it, you can not believe it, and it still has, we can still have a meaningful conversation here. Yogananda, for those who are new, Yogananda is our guru here, and we refer to him as master, meaning master of himself. Yogananda was approached by a man who said, "I'm an atheist. I don't believe in reincarnation, so it doesn't matter what I do or don't do." And Yogananda said, "Well, you can think that if you want, but there are two things to consider. On the one hand, you don't know for sure that reincarnation doesn't exist. And so you might consider it valuable to behave just in case it does exist. But the other thing is, if you behave in the right way, whether you come back again or not, this life is going to be much more fulfilling for you." So when we look at reincarnation in that way, we go, okay, what would be the best way to behave if we're going to come back or if we're not going to come back? There are some of the same principles involved. I, probably like a lot of you, grew up in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and possibly like a lot of you, I was enthusiastic about Sunday school up until a certain age when my questions started to not be answered in a meaningful way. And one of the things I remember from my comparative religions class in Sunday school was them explaining the Hindus and how they believe in this reincarnation thing and how they believe that you come back kind of in a random fashion. Now you're a female, someone's grandmother, now you're a cow, now you could be something else, a bug, now the president of India. And it was just kind of this, like a Russian roulette thing. And I thought, boy, that is a really, really crazy belief. Obviously, who could believe in that? These Hindus must be very strange. But when I came, and maybe for many of you, the reason I left that religion was my questions stopped being answered as I got more and more, your intellect develops and you have these deep questions about religion, and the answers in my religion just weren't answering things for me. But when I came to the Eastern teachings, when I came to Yogananda's teachings, the explanations were so satisfying. And one of the things he explains that I find so helpful and useful when we're talking about reincarnation, he said that imagine the ocean as God. And now you put an empty bottle into the ocean without a cap on it, and what will happen? The bottle will fill with ocean water, won't it? Well, that is the soul. The soul is no different than God. It's just contained. And what it's contained in is a little bottle which is called the causal body. Our causal body is our thought body. And when we think of the causal body and thoughts, we're not thinking about the kind of thoughts that you think when you're trying to meditate and you're thinking, what shall I buy for dinner tonight? Or those kind of wandering thoughts. It's talking about profound thoughts of our essence, of who we are, of the deep level of experience that we might know in our deepest meditation. That's where the causal body vibrates, and it's the closest to our soul realization. Well, that bottle is contained in another bottle, and that bottle is the astral body, which is our body of energy. And the astral body, in the Judeo-Christian religion, people talk about angels and going to heaven, and heaven being really, in our teachings, the astral world, the world of energy. Well, that body is where we find things like our ego, our likes and dislikes, our karma, our personality. That body is really ourselves as we know it. Well, there's that bottle is also contained in another bottle, which is our physical body. And so, at the time of death, that physical body is broken, isn't it? And it goes away. But everything else about us is intact. This deep level of thought and our personality as we know it, all of our karma, all of our likes and dislikes doesn't change. It moves on to the appropriate level of the astral world, and it comes back again to pick up our learning process where we left it off. Whatever we need to know, we still have to come back again and again until we learn it. And so that explanation of reincarnation to me made a lot of sense. That basically we're all on a journey. We're all trying to discover that we are one with the ocean of God's presence. We have some limitations in our learning, and we'll just keep coming back again and again, not randomly, but to pick up where we left off, to pick up the lessons that we need to learn. Swami said that actually we don't change that much from life to life. I found that a little sad. I was sort of hoping for a whole new deck of cards, but there's certain similar threads that we keep working on for a long time, and this is a long process until we're able to realize our oneness with God. One of the things, I have to say, this is one of my least favorite things that I've ever heard of our teachings. I understand it and I'll explain it, but I don't like it. Yogananda said that if in one life you were, say, a man who had one leg, perhaps you'd lost it in an injury or through illness or whatever, in that lifetime, if you had one leg, now you would think that would mean you would pay off that karma. But what he said was, if you identify yourself as a person who has only one leg, in your next life, you will be born either with one leg or you will somehow lose your leg. So you'll once again be a person with one leg. I can hear some groans. It's not something that makes you go, oh, that sounds so great. That sounds so logical. But when you understand it deeply, you see, okay, I see what this is about. Realizing our oneness with God is a huge step. And to do it, it has to be like the chant that we just sang with Dharmadas. I'm free. Nothing defines me. And we keep getting trained in that until we get it. So we are looking for that place in ourselves where we know, yes, I am the infinite. Nothing defines me. And as we were saying in the ceremony earlier, the purification ceremony, so often we define ourselves by that which is the smallest in us. And I hope that we can all take this image of the one-legged person and how dangerous that is for us into a serious thinking, because if there is reincarnation, we want to be free of anything that limits us. So I was thinking of some principles that could be helpful for us, whether we believe in reincarnation or not, because they're going to help us live a life that is more moving us in the direction of freedom, moving us in the direction of joy. But they are also the principles that will free us from the cycle of reincarnation. The first of these is to say, what is it that I really want, and where am I going to find it? Well, we know what we want. We all want the same thing. We want joy. We want happiness. We want love. And where are we going to find it? And that's the key. There's only one place we can find it. We can find it inside ourselves. And we have to make the effort. Obviously, meditation, Kriya Yoga, these are our tools to be able to sit still and forget for a few minutes all the things that we're doing outwardly, and to plumb the depths of ourselves and to say, yes, I experience it in myself. I just recently was having one of those times where you just don't feel all moving on all cylinders, just a little out of kilter. And I just said, what should I do now? I just feel sort of icky. I said, well, why don't you try to meditate? And so, though I didn't feel like meditating, I did. And I began to feel filled with joy. And I thought, this is wonderful. What a great proof that nothing outside will give it to you, but it does exist inside ourselves if we will be willing to look for it. But also to, not just in meditation, but in our daily life, to remind ourselves of what it is we're looking for. I had an interesting experience quite a few years ago with Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda. He used to, when he lived up at the Ananda village, he used to sometimes invite friends over to watch a movie with him. It was a way to relax with other people, but also to share vibrations of God, the vibrations of Yogananda, in a different way, kind of slipping into you in a very subtle way. So we were invited over to his house this night to see the movie Lagan. This is a 3-hour Bollywood movie. Very fun. I highly recommend it. And there were probably maybe 8 guests that he had there. And so when you go to see a movie at Swami's, the first thing you think when you walk in the door is you feel all the joy, all the bliss of his vibrations, of God's vibrations through him, and you determine to yourself, this is the important thing. Movie, not so important. Vibrations of God's presence, this is what I want to hold on to. Well, this movie of Lagan, this 3-hour movie, is filled with drama and music. It's sort of got every possible emotion in it, and it's really, really fun. And it involves the evil English colonizers of India and the poor but virtuous Indian villagers, and Lagan means tax. And so the English challenge the Indians to a cricket match, and if the Indians win, they will be free from having to pay tax to the English for 3 years. Now, these are very, very poor people, so this is a great boon. But if they lose, the tax will be tripled, which pretty much means if you're living on the edge of starvation, they would just die. And of course, the Indians don't know how to play cricket, so they have to teach themselves how to play cricket, and they're not a very athletic bunch either. So this movie goes on, and they're so virtuous and so lovable and, inept and all these different things, and the English are so evil, and you're getting more and more. You're getting up to the pinnacle 2.5 hours into the movie, what's going to happen, who's going to win, and the excitement is building and building, and at that moment, Swami said, well, I guess that's enough for tonight. And everyone in the room groaned. And we groaned for 2 reasons. One is we knew we just had to find out who was going to win. And of course, Swami was just kidding. But the other reason, and we did watch it, and I won't tell you the ending. Well, I might tell you the ending, but anyway. But the other thing was we groaned because we got caught. We forgot where we were. We forgot all that bliss of Swami's presence. We were in the movie. Doesn't that sound familiar? So we're trying to do that same thing in our daily life because in that movie, let's say, I won't tell you who won, but let's just say that the poor Indians lost, and then they starved to death, and the evil English won, I would feel bad about that for a few minutes. I would feel sad for the Indians, I would feel bad for the English, but it wouldn't last that long. But in my life, if I had to go hungry, or if somebody mistreated me, I would think it was pretty real, wouldn't I? And yet, our teachings tell us this is a movie too. Yogananda used to take his disciples to the movies, and he would do the same thing. Right at the climactic moment, he'd tap them on the knee and say, look at the beam. Look at the beam of light. It's all light and shadow. And trying to get that idea that that's what's happening in our life. It's all about trying to hold on to the light and not get caught and think that it's so real. But it's not that easy to do. I was thinking this morning, that's why we come to Sunday service. We get together as a group. We're all here. We all know it. God is real. God is what we want. Then we go out, and bit by bit, real life erodes it. We start to get involved in the drama. Then we come back together. Okay, we've got it again, and we go out. Somebody said to Yogananda, they were standing in front of a big fireplace, and he said to Yogananda, he was a disciple, he said, Master, I'm so busy in my life, I really don't have time for satsang. Satsang means spiritual company, the chance to be in these vibrations together. And Yogananda didn't say anything, but he just took the pokers from the fireplace, the tongs, and he picked out an ember from the fire. He took it out, he put it on the stone area next to the fire, and stood there, and they watched as the ember went out. That's all he said. The man got the message. This is where we keep the fire alive, being together in God's presence. So keeping that remembrance, and then keeping our minds in a positive flow as much as we can. Why? Because the positive part of our being, the spiritual eye, the top of our head, this is where we're united with God. And the more we can be positive in our attitude, positive in our actions, positive in our responses to life, we align ourselves with the presence of God within ourselves, and that's what's going to free us. Nirmala and Dharmadas didn't know this, but they shared something at Ananda a few weeks ago with our Living Discipleship class, and it got reported to me in another class, and I've been thinking about it since then. And they were asked how Swami handled big crises. And they shared an example of a time when everything looked like it was really going against Ananda, like the whole community might be destroyed. Actually, it was very, very real. What did Swami do? There wasn't anything he could do in the arena where things were going badly. But he went out and he recorded 3 albums of music. The idea being, I can't do anything about what's bad, but I can put out positive light energy to respond with that up. What's happening in your life? Not all the reasons that everything is so bad and it could be worse and what will happen to us and all the terrible things in the news and all that so forth. What can I do? What can I do in this moment to be light? Swami had surgery in India, I believe it was, and somebody came into the room and he was chuckling. This was after the surgery. He was lying in bed chuckling, and they said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm telling myself jokes." Why? Just to keep the energy up, just to align ourselves with the positive flow of energy. Where we're living now, what's happening now in our culture, in our society, in the world, in ecology, in every aspect that we can find on the news, we've really got to work hard to put out the energy of light, of positivity, of moving ourselves up. So this is free us from reincarnation, but it will also help the planet, help ourselves, help us all align with God. So staying in that positive flow. And though this seems like it's the same thing, it's a different thing. And that is avoiding being negative. There is, I hope many of you are familiar with a book by, it's about the life of Sister Gyanamata. It's called God Alone. And Sister Gyanamata was Yogananda's most advanced woman disciple. Very, very great saint. And this book, God Alone, if you haven't read it, you really have to read it. You just have to read it. It will, no matter what's going on in your life, you will find a direction that takes you toward light. So I've read this book many times, and I happened to be reading it again recently, and I was very struck by something. Yogananda said about this woman saint, he said, I've gone through her life, and I've not found one sin, even of thought. So she was not your average person with a lot of negative thoughts going on. But she was very, very ill for the last 20 years of her life. Yogananda held her in the body so that she could become fully liberated. She was very ill. Her body was in tremendous pain. And she must have written a message to Yogananda. And he told her, I'm working on holding you and healing you and so forth. And she must have written him that said something light, because it wouldn't have been negative. Something like, I don't mind leaving the body. She's been going through this torture for a long time. Maybe just to let him know that if he didn't want to keep working on her, she was fine to go. But he wrote her back something that was very important for us. He said, I'm working on you very hard right now. This is a very important time in your life. Remember, that period of illness liberated her. He said, I'm working on you very hard right now to free you. Don't tie my hands with negativity. Don't tie my hands with negativity. So think about this. This is a message for all of us. Imagine, because think what you get negative about. You're praying for something, you want something in your life, you want to be a certain person, and you think, I'll never get it, or I can't do it, or whatever. And think about this. Think about, at that moment, Yogananda is working on you, trying to bless you with what you want to be blessed by, but you say, oh, I don't know, I don't think I'll ever get there. He goes, wait, I was working on you. Now I can't do anything. You've tied my hands because you've put up a wall. Isn't that important? Because negativity is pervasive. It's not easy to get out of it. But think of that image. If you hear yourself moving in a negative direction, I can't tie his hands. He's working on me even now, even through whatever this test is that's going on for me. The Guru is working to bless me and free me. Finally, I would like to think about this last aspect of trying to, again, bring our energy here. Sometimes what we can do, let's say we start to go in a negative direction, a mood, anger, something we don't want to be doing, just take your finger and bring it to the spiritual eye and try to bring your mind to the same place where your finger is. We can try this right this minute. Just put your finger on your forehead and draw your mind to the spiritual eye. Feel as you do so, feel how your mind moves in a positive, joyful, buoyant direction. This can happen when don't feel that way at all. You can relax your hands now. But this can be your mudra, your position, your yoga position that moves you in a positive direction, and use it regularly. Yogananda said that even more helpful than meditation is to try and keep your mind at the spiritual eye all the time. So you can use this little technique easily. I don't know if you've been listening to the talks that Jyotish and Devi have been giving from India, but Jyotish, they shared a very interesting story that I'd like to close with. Two people in India that were very long-time friends of Swami Kriyananda were Rani Ban and her son Indu. Rani Ban was a great spiritual woman, and she had many saints come to her house, including Anandamayi Ma, and I think maybe Sri Yukteswar, but I'm not positive. I'm not sure about that. But it was kind of all the major saints would stop by her house when they were in Delhi. And she has passed on, and her son Indu is now almost 90, and they went to go see him. He was a Supreme Court justice. And at one point, Devi said, do you miss your mother? And he said, oh no, she talks to me all the time. She's always coming to me in my meditation and vision and so forth. And she said, well, what does she say? And he said, I don't know, she probably says many things, but this is very relevant to us. Rani is up in some high level of realization, and she was talking to, or asking Babaji, I don't know if it's a direct face discussion or what, but she was praying to Babaji, and she said, this world is so filled with darkness now. Can you do something to remove the darkness? And Babaji responded, I can't remove the darkness. He said, just as we were talking about the image of the movie, the light and dark, he said, this world is a mixture of light and dark. If I remove the dark, there's nothing there. The dark has to be there. But what I can do is I can increase the light. And what I've been thinking about this, I'm thinking it in myself, and I'm thinking it to encourage you as well. If Babaji is increasing the light, what that means is for us, if we will act as instruments of the light in our job, to feel as you go to your job that the presence of God, the presence of the Masters is flowing through you, that you're their agent, that you're sharing them with all. If you will feel it when you walk down the street or read something negative or hear something negative and try to say, I can't do anything about the negativity, but I can be an agent of the light, and really send out prayer and light to people that you read about, to people that you know, to people who need it, to this planet. If you do that, Babaji will be using you. And isn't that a wonderful concept? So this is a wonderful, wonderful time for us to be being agents of the light. And as we do that, we become more free, more blessed. If we believe in reincarnation, we become free of that. If we don't believe in it, our lives become more and more filled with God's presence. So let's now take a moment to meditate and try to feel. Bring your mind to the spiritual eye. Feel yourself consciously. You can feel that your spiritual eye is like a lighthouse. Feel yourself beaming out light to others. And we'll now have our offering.